MySpace. It ushered in the era of social media, friendships, music, dating, all of it addictively connected online. At its peak, it was the most visited website in the US. It would have hundreds of millions of users and be worth billions.
I'ma get to the top if you like it or not, cause I know that's what greatness said.
But how did the must-have social network that ruled the internet unravel? This is the unbelievable story of how MySpace went from the cool kid on the block to someone you didn't want to be friends with.
I am the greatest. I am the greatest. My power of iterated. Yeah. History I'm creating. History I'm creating. It's there for the taking. It's destiny in the making. It's destiny in the making.
I made you look, I made you look.
When you first joined MySpace, it was this first connecting piece between the real world and the online world. This was the first place where you could just express yourself on one platform.
With the glitter and the stickers and the pictures and everything. We all loved it, I loved it.
All mine had dancing beer bottles on it.
The big thing was who was on your top 8. I remember pinging people to be like, can you put me in your top 8?
You could get lost on there for hours.
To understand the story of MySpace, you have to go back to the early 2000s.
In the early 2000s, like, media isn't about social media. It's about news, it's radio, it's magazines. When social media first came out for me, I just wanted nothing to do with it until I got into the business world. Did I have to start understanding like this was an actual tool for business.
In 2002, a platform came out called Friendster, and this was revolutionary at the time because you could actually upload a picture and create a profile.
Friendster opened the door to influencer culture where you could get exposure through your followers.
Tila Tequila was one of the first social media influencers that there was. She had made a huge name for herself on Friendster. It got her a lot of publicity. Friendster was making a splash, but it had very limited capabilities. So these 3 guys in Los Angeles, Brad, Chris, and Tom, thought, we can do this. What if we make this a more social network? And that's how they created MySpace.
I'm Maria Hunt. My role at MySpace was the office manager and MySpace Tom's assistant. I met Chris first. He's very smart, approachable, and nice. And then Tom, I would describe him as an introvert, nicest guy on the planet. And I think I actually got hired on the spot.
To set itself apart from Friendster, MySpace came up with a brilliant strategy.
When you first joined MySpace, your first friend was Tom.
It actually goes way back to Friendster. You know, you couldn't see people unless you had a friend. So I put myself as this person that could connect everyone else.
Because of that connection, you were then able to friend anybody.
Just this whole idea of now getting out of your zone of people that you currently know, you're able to do that with MySpace. There was these different things you could do with the page, music on the page.
The whole customizing your MySpace page was like you would customize your locker.
By the end of January 2004, MySpace had 1 million users.
In the early days of Friendster, they were really strict on content. Tila Tequila was always putting up inappropriate content, and she kept getting booted, and every time she would get back on the platform, she would have to restart her whole friend profile.
The strict rules on Friendster pushed Tila Tequila to go to MySpace.
And with her, she brought all her gaggle of fans. She was able to post the type of content she wanted.
We were growing so fast. It was fun and a little chaotic, but we knew then that we were part of something like big. We surpassed Friendster within like the first 9 months.
MySpace is the definitive new thing.
Tom and Chris were both musicians. They love music, and one of the really big things they wanted to push early on is to make it a platform for musicians.
They were going out in real time to the clubs and to the restaurants and to the bars. They were convincing bands to get on MySpace, promote their music so they could actually connect with their audiences.
And they would go to the Whiskey A Go-Go, they would go to the Viper Room, they'd basically cruise up and down the Sunset Strip and look for bands and sign them up. They understood culture and they understood marketing. They started these hip new clubs where musicians could hang out and they would show them the benefits of MySpace.
My name is Frank Haydu, and I was the Vice President of Business Development at Myspace. I had come from the music industry. I think part of MySpace's reason for wanting to hire me was because I did have experience working at a major label. They really sought musicians to be some of their, ultimately ambassadors. It was a really cheap and effective way to kind of get your message across within 20 or 30 seconds.
It was a way to be discovered because back then it was very difficult to get seen. There wasn't things like TikTok today. In fact, it was how Adele was found.
Discovered on MySpace became a recurrent theme. Arctic Monkeys, Lily Allen, Sean Kingston, Calvin Harris. Watching artists explode from their MySpace origins was a real point of pride for us.
Big name acts start recognizing MySpace as the place to be, and REM becomes the first major band to debut an album through social media.
That was just genius of these founders of MySpace to say, how do we use this technology to then market people?
Another thing MySpace started doing was secret shows. If an artist was playing at some big venue, they would contract it out with the artist to have a smaller private show before or after that performance.
Dane Cook was out there hustling on MySpace, and that's how he blew up. He was selling out stadiums before any other social media had ever done that.
They're making celebrities more accessible.
It really made fans feel like they were friends with these people.
MySpace became an integral part of every one of their marketing plans. You couldn't ask for a more lush advertising environment.
We were hiring amazing, young, driven people who brought the energy. Anyone who's anyone wanted to come into our office and hang out or go to our parties. We were excited when we were climbing, growing so fast.
MySpace sees meteoric exponential growth in the first half of 2005.
They are adding users by the millions.
There was rumblings of, big companies vying to buy us.
News Corp and Viacom see a huge opportunity here.
They both see MySpace as a way to get into the new frontier of digital media. They both realize MySpace is the big unicorn for everything that's happening in social media. We've got to get this, or else there's nothing else.
There was rumblings that there were big companies vying to buy us.
It's getting the attention of all these media moguls, the ones that hold the most power.
It seemed very organic for this to be an offshoot for Viacom.
Viacom at MTV. MTV aligned more with MySpace because of the whole music aspect of it.
These guys fell off the countdown yesterday. Today they bounced back number 10. It's Yellow Card at Ocean Avenue. It's ERL.
Rupert Murdoch and News Corp had all this more traditional content. He owns Fox News, Simpsons. He thinks, okay, now I can put all of this in front of this MySpace audience. And so for him, it was perfect situation to build towards a new, young, fresh audience.
The two CEOs were battling each other to try to see who was going to capture MySpace. News Corp ends up winning the bidding war. This was a historic deal.
And Viacom is so upset about this that they fire their CEO. This acquisition is completely paying off. MySpace is getting more visitors every month than Google, than AOL, or eBay.
While MySpace rules social networking as a public forum that's open to everyone, a different platform has been establishing a foothold on college campuses.
College students across the country are, quote, Facebooking their classmates to connect with them or just get more information about them.
I was a freshman in college, and there wasn't a ton of people on it compared to MySpace.
MySpace is edgy and customizable, and Facebook comes along and it's college campus kids. It felt more like what we look at like LinkedIn. Facebook is getting 1 million visitors a month, and MySpace is getting 24 million a month. So they didn't see it as competition.
Mark Zuckerberg, while creating Facebook in the early stages, went to MySpace and said, I'll sell you Facebook for $75 million. And MySpace turned it down.
The site was growing so fast, they were like, no deal. Why would we do that? But one thing that happened with expanding such a huge online audience so quickly, they weren't paying attention to the infrastructure or the engineering of the site.
There was this often unspoken, shit, at some point we're gonna have to pay back this technical debt. we've got to patch this, we've got to fix that, we've got to re-architect this. And very, very, very hard to do when you're dealing with that kind of traffic.
The old technology ends up biting them in the butt because somebody ended up hacking the website.
The first ever social media virus comes through Sammy the worm and hits 1 million MySpace pages.
Although the worm was relatively innocuous, it exposed major security issues with the MySpace site.
When a company is not focused on a proper engineering team, you have issues. There's holes in the code, there's things that need to be updated, and there's security problems.
Our team, I don't think, was prepared for it. I mean, no one was.
But not even a virus can derail MySpace's exponential growth.
By 2006, they were now getting 200,000 new users a day. And at this point, it's now become about monetization. How do you go about running more ads and creating more revenue for the company?
If you're News Corp, you're gonna play the playbook you know, advertising the content you have. You're in the ad game, you're in the content game, you're certainly in the movie game.
A lot of great partnerships with studios to help promote their films.
In fact, they had a deal where they got $1 million to put X-Men 3 upon the release on their front page. And that became a huge revenue stream for them. They would do these front page buyouts where anybody could advertise and get all of these eyeballs.
MySpace even overtook Yahoo and Google to become the most visited site in the United States.
Eventually, MySpace reaches 100 million users, which is a massive number. And so Google comes along and they say, look, we want to be your exclusive ad buyer and we'll pay you a lot of money to do it. We want to give you $900 million.
They go on to create an exclusive ad sales partnership with Google.
By October, MySpace's revenue skyrockets to $30 million per month.
However, they now have a new competitor in the public social networking space.
Facebook today opened up its social networking site to the masses.
Anyone can join. And I just knew that there was talks like, oh, Facebook's coming up.
One of the main problems MySpace had was there was no kind of verification, you didn't need an ID, anybody could sign up under any name. What this ended up causing was people were signing up for all these accounts and they were cyberbullying.
As things went on, the dark side came out.
Prosecutors charged that Drew created a fake profile of a teenage boy on MySpace and used it to torment Meyer, who hanged herself in her own bedroom.
This was the first time that somebody had gone on to a social media platform and created a fake profile and bullied somebody who was young to the point where they actually committed suicide. And it was a really dark situation.
MySpace became the poster child for cyberbullying.
Deliberations began in Los Angeles today in what some people have called the MySpace suicide trial.
All of a sudden they had to deal with cyberbullying, and now parents are wondering, is my kid safe online? Well, now the company's distracted. It had to address this very urgent need that lives were being lost.
So then we had to deal with it when it arose, and it was happening really, really fast, and I don't think they were prepared for it.
So they had to hire hundreds and hundreds of people to scour the internet and look for things that need to be taken down, things that were inappropriate commentary, and it was really expensive human capital.
MySpace starts putting in all these controls. That's tough because you've branded yourself as the free-for-all place. Once you've already decided to go in this direction and kind of turning that ship, you've kind of lost your brand.
So they put some restrictions on their accounts, they clean it up, and they make all their users really upset, including their biggest Tila Tequila with 1.7 million followers, and she takes all of her followers to Facebook.
I will fuck you up!
Now at this point, MySpace is kind of making the mistake of not innovating. They're relying on old ad revenue to continue to fund them going forward. Whereas Facebook was really trying to innovate the tech, create a better user experience to attract these advertisers later on.
Facebook took this chance to go, hey, look, we're going to facilitate the connection between people through widgets. We're gonna have people play games like Farmville and Candy Crush, and app developers started creating apps for Facebook. I think there were over 1,000 apps that were being created. MySpace had 0.
Facebook is keeping people on the platform for hours on end. I even remember when my mom got Farmville, she would play it all night while watching movies with me.
All of a sudden, Facebook's traffic goes up 26%. People were so obsessed with Farmville. It was really just this thing that kept people on. It was very sticky.
They were completely focused on the user experience. By 2008, they had grown to 100 million users. They lost $56 million that year because they did not want to go with the advertisements and spam the site.
Facebook has yet to figure out how to make money off its huge audience.
They wanted to build it the right way from the beginning before they ever started monetizing.
I never loved MySpace. I always felt like it was a mess, and things just didn't seem to be working as smoothly as they were over at Facebook.
Fed up with annoying advertisements, raunchy spam messages, and glitchy technical issues, users finally decide to do something about it.
A giant group gets together and they say, we're all going to delete MySpace on the same exact day.
My fists send you to your next chapter, hoping you're buckled up. It's a rough ride if you fuck with them.
I don't even know how it caught wind so quickly, but it did, because I was one of those people and moved completely over to Facebook.
By April 2008, Facebook catches up to MySpace in worldwide unique visitors. MySpace still has 2 times more users in the US, and Rupert Murdoch is convinced that MySpace still reigns supreme.
There's no doubt that a lot of people like Facebook, but it's not a head-on fight.
As the rise of smartphones makes mobile internet use mainstream, Facebook puts on a full-court press by launching a mobile app.
Smartphones came around, and there was no MySpace app for your mobile devices. You had to wait to interact when you got home, or you can open it up, but through the web browser.
MySpace would eventually release an app 2 years later.
I think they dropped the ball on that.
They felt like music was the backbone of what they did, and so they start this thing called MySpace Music. They invest over $120 million in this initiative.
Let's go whole hog on music, and let's make it so that bands can release their stuff on MySpace.
Basically, what they were trying to create was Spotify as we know it today. You'd be able to have your playlist, listen to songs, and you do it all within MySpace.
And they make deals with all the record labels. They've now got a way for artists to put out entire albums. And now if you want to purchase the album, it'll drive you over to iTunes or to Amazon to be able to purchase through those partners as well.
When people heard about it, they were just left confused. Why would they have to go on their desktop in order to listen to some songs? They would rather go just listen to them on their iPod. In 2008, MySpace's revenue target was $1 billion, and they came up short.
Once numbers became concerning, suddenly there were a few more suits in the building.
We knew that the Fox execs were upstairs, you know. It was just very, very different. We felt micromanaged, we felt like people were looking at us. So it definitely really changed the culture.
I specifically remember one day, and who gets off the elevator is Rupert Murdoch. Rupert, his COO, Peter Chernin, starting showing up for more meetings.
2009, it finally happens. Facebook overtakes MySpace in the US.
Facebook traffic and MySpace traffic had officially crossed. We had been overtaken. And so that was extremely chilling.
MySpace music didn't work, and it was such a massive mistake. MySpace ends up laying off 1/3 of their workforce.
MySpace is cutting nearly 30% of its workforce in a move the News Corp-owned online hangout says will make it more efficient.
They're shutting down international offices, and they even get rid of the original founders, Tom and Chris.
Facebook's momentum is unstoppable.
As Rupert Murdoch watches MySpace implode, he finally decides to cut his losses.
In 2011, Rupert Murdoch sells off MySpace to Specific Media. Rupert Murdoch, when he purchased MySpace, he bought it for $580 million, and now he's sold it for $35 million, roughly 1/10 of what he bought it for.
And MySpace is trying to make yet another comeback.
Specific Media bring in Justin Timberlake as the face of the new relaunch of MySpace.
But even Justin Timberlake can't help MySpace get its sexy back, and the site that once ruled the internet would be passed around as a piece of various companies' sales and acquisitions.
Once Facebook was established and everyone was on it,
that was where you went.
It was the hottest social networking site in town until suddenly, not so much.
But I think what we learn from this example of MySpace versus Facebook, you can grab a customer initially, but how do you keep them there? How do you make them want to come back again? And that's always through reinventing yourself.
They weren't paying attention to the two biggest things they needed, the direction that the users were going and how they wanted to engage and interact, and they weren't paying attention to the technology, which was crumbling beneath them.
Now the big what if to all of this is, what would have happened if Viacom won the bidding war? What kind of path would they have taken, and where would they be today? Who knows?
Rupert Murdoch eventually did say, when it comes to MySpace, they screwed it up in every possible way. And he put that out as a tweet.
If they bought Facebook, what would this company have been?
Combining them could make a really valuable asset.
I think it would have been a great partnership, and I think we would have been able to do a lot more. That's the million-dollar question. You never know, you know?
In 2019, they decided to migrate some servers, and they lost data for 13 years of customers' profiles.
One tech expert online estimated that over 50 million songs from 14 million artists are now permanently deleted.
You were never getting that back.
We keep in touch with all past, MySpace employees. We are all in a, ironically enough, in a Facebook MySpace alum group.
By then, we won't see you later. We don't show no love to a hater. We don't need a failure. We don't need a traitor. Don't ask no questions. Learn your lesson. Take what we want and we don't need your blessing. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Stay out like a priest. Better pray that all of your sins will be forgotten. Watch how you step, proceed with caution. Now you've run out of options. By then.